Welcome, welcome, welcome to another episode of Finding Freedom Through Confidence, where we always say that confidence isn't something that you pick up from a supermarket shelf, it is an ever growing muscle. We are on a new three-part series, the Leadership Belief Engine. Three roles every leader must master to forge an unbreakable team. Last week, we talked about the architect, the leader who draws the blueprint of belief by creating a vision that others can actually run with. Think about the skills set of a real architect. They have the design ability, meaning they imagine something that doesn't yet exist. They have the organizational ability, meaning they turn ideas into plans that can be followed. And they have the interpersonal ability, which means that because no design can become life without collaboration. And so we all need the collaboration. As leaders, we need to collaborate. One of the, I think the main pillars or main skill set of a leader is that of collaboration, small group collaboration, or even large group collaboration. And so, as we get into it, and while the architects may never lay the bricks themselves, they need to know the codes and the standards. So they need to know. So in real life, architects needs to know the codes and the building standards. So what they design is not just pretty, but it's going to be functional. So leaders, this is you. You don't just dream up grand ideas. You also align those ideas with reality. You align those leaders with reality. And you draft a vision that connects people's lives. You draw the blueprint of belief for your team. Now, I want to pause and I want to say good morning to everyone. If you are joining us for the first time, welcome, welcome, welcome again to another episode of Finding Freedom Through Confidence. If you're listening to us on LinkedIn, let us know where you're tuning in from. If you are listening to us live on YouTube, welcome. Leave your comments over there, and I personally go over and I check every comment and respond. Now, today, we move to the next critical role in the leadership belief engine, the engineer. Because as beautiful as the blueprint may look, it is useless without a strong foundation beneath it. And so before we go any further into the content today, I have with me a friend, a colleague, and a mentor. You all know her. She is on LinkedIn and YouTube every Tuesday. And she does a self-care series on a Tuesday as well. I want to reintroduce you. If you are new to us, I want to introduce you. And if you've not been here for a while, I want you to reintroduce you to Dr. Marcia Thomas, my colleague, friend, mentor. As I stated before, Dr. Marcia is no stranger to this show. She is a 6 times best-selling author, and we are guaranteeing that it's going to be 7 times. She's a Christian life and leadership coach and consultant. She also supports leaders who are currently doing their master's or doctoral degree in their thesis or dissertation from start to finish. She has a new book, not coming out. It is already out. It is on Amazon. My Faith Looks Up. So you can visit Amazon and you can purchase that book to make it the number 7th best-selling book for Dr. Marcia. She is also the wife of one husband, as I always like to tease her with. Dr. Marcia, welcome to another episode of Finding Freedom Through Confidence. Happy that you could join me
Thank
here
you.
for this session.
Thank you. Happy to be here. I'm having some struggles with my network right now, or it might just be my antivirus is giving me some issues. I'm gonna have to fix it after it gave me a hard time coming on. But I'm happy to be here. Good morning, everyone. And I know we're gonna have a great discussion this morning. Thank you for that lovely
Yes.
introduction also.
You're welcome, Dr. Marcia. Yes, we're going to have a great discussion because, and I just want to share with the audience again, if you and I haven't met as yet, I'm Tanique Easy, speaker, corporate trainer, facilitator, and empowerment coach, and I help organizations train and develop their new frontline and mid-level leaders so they stop losing money to turnover, disengagement, and poor leadership execution by equipping your new frontline and mid level leaders with the skills to retain talent, drive performance, and deliver ROI using my proprietary MVP framework. And so, yes, we'll be having a wonderful discussion this morning. Over the next 15 to 20 minutes, we wanna talk about or visualize, how or help frontline and mid-level leaders visualize themselves as parallels to architects, to engineers, and to mechanics. And I use these terms because they are if you are in any state, you will be passing some construction at some point in time. And you will see from my real estate background, when I pass construction site, you see, and worse if it is a development that is approved by the local authorities, like your building parish councils and stuff, you will see that you have an architect who designed the building. You will see that you have an engineer as part of the team, right? You may not see a mechanic, but where does the mechanic come in? You have mechanical engineers. But in this case, I'm going to parallel the mechanic to that of someone who fixes a car, right? And so I want you to look at yourself in the parallel of these roles. You're an architect. As a leader, you design that blueprint. As I spoke last week, the vision is on the wall. It's nice on the plaque in the lobby, and it's maybe in different aspects of your organization, and it's nice and pretty there. But as a frontline leader, even as an HR director, operations director, does your team really know what that vision means? Do they own that vision? Do you own that vision? Have you taken the time to take that vision, pencil it out, and bring it to your team and create your own departmental vision from that to achieve the the performance that you want to, or that you would envision your team um, creating? And so Dr. Marcia, as I said, I want to stimulate a discussion around this for the next few minutes. And this is not a real story, but this is an analogy, like a story that we can put ourselves in. And this is the story of a mid-level leader who took the grandeur vision of the organization and he casted a vision for his department. His team loved these big ideas. But when deadline hits, his people froze because they didn't trust that he would back them up if things went wrong. How many of us have been in positions like those where the vision is there, the ideas are grand and big? However, the launch failed, something happened. But as we said, you didn't trust. You freeze up, you stop doing because you don't trust that the person who is leading you will have your back as a team or as a team member. And so, this person, would you say, was an excellent architect? He was an excellent architect, but not yet an engineer. You see, the blueprint looked good, but the foundation was shaky. And shaky foundations can't carry weight. They can't carry weight. And so let's talk about how a leader may over design but under engineer in the terms of those things. Remember the story. And so, Dr. Marcia, I want to carry you in here and by asking this pertinent question. And for our viewers, I have questions that I'm going to ask you, and I want you to drop your answers in the chat. And again, if you are joining us for the first time, welcome. If you're joining us for the second, third, fourth time, we're happy to have you here. Share this out with your network, with some leaders who need to hear this conversation so that they can come in and they can answer these questions as well. And so, Dr. Marcia, the question that I have for you is, in your experience, where do you see leaders fall into the trap of over-visioning but under-building trust? And why do you think this happens so often?
Good morning again, everyone. I have this burden on a Thursday that I have to be using two of my gadgets to get it going. However, I love this topic very, very much. It is very dear to me because I'm happy that we do what we do, Tanique, in our practices and our businesses, because leadership is so important. And I am finding from experience, and know that I am able to look at the label from the outside and not from within, because when you're within, it limits you. Sometimes you can't read the label on the inside of the bottle. But now that we are outside of it, I am looking at vision. In any organization, there is a big vision. When you enter that organization, you have to what they say commonly, the theory of leadership, and I have it in my leadership book. That theory of leadership says that you are only great or exceptional or effective as a leader if you can allow others to buy into a vision, whatever vision it is. So you, first of all, have to buy into the organizational vision. And we tend to do that perfectly in an interview, especially if it's an interview where you're connected and you're sure that you would get the job. You are sure that you do not have to understand the vision. You don't usually understand the vision because you are just placed because of connection or cronyism or nepotism, whatever reason you got there by default or by fault or by the nature that you are capable. You still have to understand a vision and you still have to push it out there. And I am one. In my program, I promote a compelling vision, the internal alignment which causes persons to overvision, and the proven strategy that you will use. Many organizational leaders who are carrying out the mandate of a board or so on is not allowed that grace to take the vision that you're talking about and to translate it to fit the organizational needs, the context, and the resources that you have. They are still expected, and I call it leadership theory, to magnify the vision that others may have or for the profits and the performance of the organization without buying into and taking into consideration who your resources are, what they need, the support, and so on. And so I find that many leaders who find themselves in that situation, which is really most, because there is nothing set in leadership, and the revelation tells you something different every single time. And so one of the things I find is that they overcommit. They make promises that they cannot keep. It's not practical to keep on the surface. And then the reason why they overvision too is the pressure to deliver results and to deliver these things that are unrealistic most times. And it's not all the time. So the results, they are pressured to achieve these short-term results and the long-term results. And the final thing I find is that of the lack of emotional intelligence. And many leaders don't want to get to the point where they appear uncaring or nonchalant, but the decision fatigue and the overwhelm pushes them into getting results, especially if they are being pressured from another end. Many middle managers don't understand that. And so the leader takes the blunt and is seen as harsh, unyielding, unreasonable, because they have to be suiting themselves while managing the heartache and pain of their leadership with who they are leading, who also have real issues. And so there seem to be a lack of emotional intelligence, which we can actually become nonchalant and hard and unyielding because we are more on performance than people. But the
Right.
situation can push you right there. And then the overarching focus on the strategy, what we must do to get there, that's not working either. Because as you get to a point where something happens, as you say, or there a mistake or a failure, they have the blame game, and they are looking at the tunnel vision of just achieving that. This is where you must go, and this is how you're gonna get there. And that in itself can cause overvigiling and lack of building trust.
Yes. And I agree with you, Dr. Marcia, because as you talk about the emotional intelligence, and as we said that, you know, when you design something as an architect, you design it. As an engineer, you are building that trust, and emotional intelligence comes in. And that is why I spoke about, you know, the having the skill set of not just organizing and problem solving, because that is key. However, when we talk about having that small group, positive small group collaboration, that's where your emotional intelligence comes in, because you need to have that team to collaborate with you. People will go along for going along sake, but when we get to where it becomes emotionally intelligent, as you said, where it's people, not just performance, because let's not get it twisted that when we talk about emotional intelligence and performance, it's that they're not outside of each other, because we have to be emotionally intelligent as leaders to understand who is performing and who is not performing. And we have to be able to connect those and to find the space where we can bring people together to find out, okay, why is it that this is happening, instead of, as you said, playing the blame game. And yes, we know that there is the top down pressure and the bottom up pressure. And so those who are in the middle, they are the ones who normally feel most of the pressure. It's like you're compressing the top and the bottom, and they feel the squeeze. As they say, you squeeze out the lemon, they feel the squeeze. And again, it can seem like they are uncaring. And it may get to that point too. It may get to that point because of the pressure that is happening from either top or from the bottom. And they divorce themselves from the emotions, and they just focus on the performance. And so, Dr. Marcet, I have a follow-up question for you, that you can share one practical step that you've seen leaders take to balance the vision with trust, because we need both the vision and we need the trust to go with it. Because if we don't buy into that vision, I mean, really buy into the vision, then the ROI, the performance that we're looking for, it's not going to be 100%. I remember, I'm going to allow you to answer, Dr. Marcel, but I remember reading something that says leaders need to carry their best self to work, not their whole self.
Very much so.
So that stood out to me, because we don't need, as a leader, you don't need to carry your whole self, but you need to carry the best of you when you're going to the place of employment, and that includes being emotionally intelligent. So, Dr. Marcia, while
The best of you.
I this question,
Go ahead.
So, what's one follow-up? What's one practical strategy that you would give to leaders, or you've seen leaders take to balance vision with trust?
What I want to say about the best of you is that the best of you is the whole you, the composite you with all everything that comes with you and must be faced. So it's the authentic you. One of the things that I find that many supervisors take what would I say? They take issue with is the fact that, and this is a strategy that I want to put across that covers, I find, most of the strategies. And that is, when you are realistic and very practical and open, we call it transparency in organization, being transparent. But the transparency carries with it honesty, it carries with it practicality, and it carries with it principle. Now, there are many persons in many sectors, health, education, hospitality, and so on, who believe that this is not a reliable strategy. They feel that you must push people, but persuasion is always better than force. And they tell you that you must find a way to relate with them and build trust and relationship, but they don't know what they're talking about, because for them it means that you must force people to do what you want them to do. And they say that's good leadership, getting people to do what you want them to do. And that's not leadership at all. That is compliance, and that is followership. And so if we want people to actually carry the vision, they must first understand it through transparency. We must be honest and open with what it is and what we can accomplish and what we need to accomplish and how they can support from their side and at the different levels of the organization to carry out the vision. So persons must understand, we must listen. Transparency requires listening. You can't give a man shoes who has no feet. And many times we give people basket to carry water and feel that they are either rebellious or they are not stepping up to the plate. They are too nonchalant. They are not doing enough, because we don't understand that they are motivated differently and they don't understand their place and where they fit. Because there are some persons who actually too are pushing the meter and doing what they're doing, but they are never appreciated or undervalued or valued, because if they make a mistake, as you say, it's as if they never did anything in the organization to assist you. They never carried it to a particular place. They never held their own. And these things destroy trust. So when you're honest with people, when you value them, when you listen to them, and when you support them through being transparent with yourself and with others and being vulnerable, then that trust is completely built, because you begin to treat people the way you would want to be treated if the situation would reverse. It doesn't mean that they would comply. It doesn't mean that they will understand, because leadership has a great burden, a heavy burden that they carry.
Yes.
And so when you make decisions for the good of all, it doesn't suit some. And those are the militant voices. You will appear as if you are not doing anything. But transparency is one of the ways out, that if it carries all of what I have just said.
Yes, and I definitely agree with you on that, Dr. Marcia, that it in most instances it's compliance rather than complementing, or rather than, as you said, the transparency, the practicality, the honesty, and listening. But because this quiz is happening oftentimes, and we are talking about, for those of you who are just joining us, we are on the series, we're on a 3-part series for the next 3 weeks, which is, well, we started last week, this is our second week. And so for this week, we're talking about the engineer. So we're paralleling leadership, those in mid-level leaders, to the engineer. How do you engineer? How do you take on or look like an engineer? How do you engineer the vision so that your team can buy into it? And we talked about the architect last week, the person who designs the vision, but with the vision being designed, you need someone to carry it out. And a nice blueprint, when it is not, even if it is nice and pretty, but it doesn't have anybody to carry it out, that's just it. It's just a nice blueprint. And so we are talking about the engineer this week. So 3 roles every leader must master to build or to forge an unbreakable team. And so the engineer is the one who builds trust that lasts. And so we have been talking about those. And for my audience, I want to ask you this question. I want to ask you this question, my audience. So if your team doubts one thing about you, what would it be? Would it be your fairness, your follow through, or your consistency? And I want that to sink in for you, my audience, as I read that question for you, because we're talking about leadership, and leadership is complex. Even though it is simple, it is also complex because there are different aspects and different sides to what leadership is. And so, as Dr. Marcia says, persuasion is better than force. So we don't want to force people. And when we look at, and it also comes down to self-awareness as a leader, the self-awareness piece, the emotional intelligence piece. And so, Dr. Marcel, the other question that I want you to answer for us, that as I said, stimulate this discussion this morning for our audience, is that what do you think are the most common areas where leaders lose trust? And that includes fairness, follow through, and consistency. What do you think are the most common areas where leaders lose trust, fairness, follow through, and consistency?
In my mind, I think leaders lose trust when team members lose trust when leaders are not consistent. You say one
Yeah.
thing, your actions doesn't match your words, and you divide and conquer, because a lot of leaders have been taught that the best way to go is to divide and conquer. And so the lack of consistency and the methodology where you set people against each other, or you have favorites, is one of the things that destroys trust in leaders. The next thing that destroys trust is the macromanaging. A lot of persons micromanage, sorry. That's what makes persons lose trust. A lot of leaders micromanage their team because of the fear of failure, or the fear of criticism or judgment from the higher ups. And so they dot every I and cross every T, and they look over the shoulder of these persons, so they can't be themselves and they can't lead their team, because when these middle managers actually make a decision for the best interest of their team, knowing their team much more than the hierarchy comes and change it immediately. They might have given the team a deadline, and the hierarchy comes over talk and overstep that position and speaks and changes everything. And so the helplessness that results in for that leader is that they know that the leader is not in charge, and that the leader don't have any clout, and so there is lack of trust. So they really look towards, they hear what the leader says, but they later look to say, let's see what will change and how it will change, because the leader is not able to stand up, or the leader in fact not standing up to say these things are practical. And believe me, when your team trusts you, they work.
Yes.
When they know you're loyal to them and have their back, they work. When they know that you can stand up to the hierarchy on their behalf and do it with grace and dignity, they will work. And that's part of the problem. So sometimes it's really the hierarchy who takes away the trust, takes the rug from underneath the leaders, the middle managers' feet, because of how they come to how would I say, prance their authority.
Right.
Yeah, man, and perk
to dominate and dictate their authority.
Yes. And the final thing that relates in trust is lack of vulnerability. You are not honest that you don't know the answers, because you, as a leader, as I said in my thing on Tuesday, you have this theory in that you must have the answers. And there are some persons who say, when you did come to the interview, based on the scenarios that were presented to you, you had those answers because you had the experience. But when you hit the ground, the revelation is different. And so you now need their support and expertise to bind you and to get consensus, to deal with something that is unprecedented. And here they are saying you should have all the answers. They don't have it either, but you should have
you should have it.
Yes. And so that is a form of emasculation that they put on leaders that destroy trust among team members. There are also some hierarchy who go behind the leader and generate conversations with middle managers that seeks to undermine the authority and expertise and experience of the leaders that they have put in charge in an effort to macromanage. These leaders, as these hierarchy members, are called narcissists, and they destroy the trust because they begin to make the team members distrust the ability and expertise of this reliable person who is carrying out their weight, meeting the job description, and going above and beyond their call of duty to serve all persons. And so, and these persons make it their point of duty to pop in at any time and to question people behind you, or to set up contacts with these persons that they call them in the middle of the night to get information and mismanage the information to go against leaders. And so there is a lot of distrust in organizations.
Yes, and I like that part, Dr. Marcia, because as you said, you know, in the interview, you had all the answers. You got the scenarios, and it appeared that you had all the answers, because an interview is 20, 30 minutes, and you get some scenarios. You cannot have all the answers. As you said, when you hit the ground, there are scenarios that are going to pop up that you would have never seen before. That will require you to think differently, to face things differently, and to assess how is it that you're going to be moving from this point on. How is it that you're going to deal with this? And so I spoke about that in one of my other videos on YouTube, where I talk about, as a leader, it's not you don't have to have all the answers, but it is about building that trust. It is about that transparency that you spoke about. It's about that vulnerability. And when we talk about vulnerability, we are not talking about you dumping on people. We're talking about you being open enough to say, I don't know. And it's okay to say, I don't know. Let us try to figure this out together. People will trust you even more because they are saying, okay, you are bringing us into the loop. You're bringing us into the process.
Very much so.
Because we are building this vision. We see the vision, but if you don't bring us into it, we cannot buy into it. And so that is how you build the trust from the ground up. Letting the team members know, I don't have all the answers. And one of the things that and it's going to be in my YouTube short for today that I'll be posting, is that when you tell your team that I don't know, you ask them, start your meeting. One of the things that I said is to start your meeting with, teach me something today that I don't yet know. You don't have to, you can sit. And one of the things that as I continue to read and to expand my own knowledge in the space, is that one person says that don't sit at the head of the table every time. As a leader, don't sit at the head of the table every time you have a meeting. Go and sit in the middle and allow your team members to know that you are in this with them. It's a collaborative effort. And so we're going to figure this out together. It's not always about you dictating and, as we said, having all the answers. And that is how you build the fairness. That is how you build the trust and the consistency. And again, releasing the micromanagement. So thank you, Dr. Marcia. I love that answer that you shared just now. And so as we continue and as we, get closer to the end of this program, I want to say thank you to all of those who are watching live. And if you're watching the replay, type #replay when it comes out and let us know what has been your biggest takeaways thus far. Share with us your own leadership struggles and challenges, and give us some hints or something that you would have used to turn over a situation from the negative to the positive. How is it that you have built trust with your team within your organization? How is it that you would have brought in your team into the process of building the vision for that department so that you can continue to exceed or to meet the performance standards of your organization? Let us know in the comments what that looks like, because we learn and we grow from each other. And so, Dr. Marcia, we want to talk about how habits strengthen the foundation, because again, if we have a nice blueprint, Architect designs the blueprint, but it is not up to code because you can design a blueprint, but the foundation, the place where you're going to put that foundation is not suitable. That's where the engineer comes in, because he has to go out and to do the site visit and to approve that, hey, this place that we're gonna lay this foundation, it is stable or it is not stable. And so if we don't have a stable foundation, then things are going to come crashing down sooner or later. And so habits in terms of leadership, habits build foundation, whether it is in your own personal leadership, whether it is in your leadership organization, or in whatever aspect of your life. Habits strengthen your foundation. And good habits, good habits, that is, let us make the distinction, because good habits strengthen your foundation. And so for the audience, the question for you is, what system or habit could you start this week that would make your leadership foundation stronger? What system or habit could you start this week that would make your leadership foundation stronger? And I want to roll right into the question for Dr. Marcia, is that if you could give leaders one habit or one system to implement immediately that strengthens trust, what would it be? If
I
you
call
could
it
give leaders one system or habit to implement immediately that strengthens trust, what would it be?
I call it MEET. I use the acronym MEET. And I say, make an effort to understand the people that you're around. Engage them, empower them, and talk with them, not to them.
Yeah.
That's it. MEET. Always have this thing where you make sure that the persons who you're engaging with in your team and so on you understand them and they understand you. You know what triggers you and what triggers them. You want to engage them meaningfully, so you want to connect with them. You want to empower them, meaning that you want to give them the required support. You also want them to test themselves to see what they can produce. And you want to make sure that you talk with them, which we call consistent feedback or regular check-ins.
Yes. Yes, and regular check-ins. Leaders, don't underestimate regular check-ins. Don't underestimate it. People like to feel seen. People like to feel like they're valued. And that will go a long way. People will trust you. People will buy into the vision that you are building when they feel seen and when they feel valued. And so, Dr. Marcia, could you repeat the acronym again, MEET, and let persons again know again what that, what it means, so that because this is good. This is good for them, because this is practicality that we're talking about here. What is the practical thing that they can do right now, immediately, as they come off this presentation? What they can take that and they can use it immediately, because sometimes we get all of these the tactics and the strategies, but we can't use it right away. We can't figure out how to implement it in our daily activities or even in our weekly activities as leaders. And so I like this one that you talk about, MEET, because as we said, don't underestimate talking with your team members one-on-one, getting to know them. And again, I think the link to the YouTube short that I'm posting today has something to do similar to what Dr. Marcia talked about in terms of MEET.
All right, so you want me to repeat the acronym?
Yes.
So we are saying you are to make sure that you understand your team and your team understands you, know what triggers them and so on. So we want to engage them through meaningful connections and conversations and discussion. We want to empower them. We want to see how far we can let them do what they need to get done to test themselves, to see what they can produce. And you also want to give them the required support that they need. And you want to talk with them, not at them or to them, so that there is some consensus and that there is active listening and communication.
I love that. I love that, Dr. Marcia. Absolutely, absolutely love that indeed. And so I want to anchor what we have been talking about over the last 40 plus minutes with a quote by Patrick Lencioni. And he once said that trust is knowing when a team member does push you, and when a team member does push you, they are doing it because they care about the team. And so the foundation of the engineer is that is built. It's a culture where disagreements will happen, questions will be asked, and even mistakes are treated as investment in the strengths, not liabilities. And so here's what the learning points or the teaching points that I want to leave with us today as we look at ourselves in the context of being an engineer or from the perspective of an engineer. And here's the leadership translation: collaboration. So engineers, they collaborate. Leaders, you collaborate. Engineers consult the architect to ensure feasibility. Leaders, you co-create trust with your team, not dictate it. Not dictate the trust. You co-create it. Critical thinking. Engineers test whether designs will hold up. Leaders, you test whether your culture is strong enough to handle challenges. Attention to detail. Engineers double check every connection. Leaders, you pay attention to the small cracks in your culture where trust might erode. Again, go back to Dr. Marcia's acronym of MEET. That's where this comes in. Adaptability. Engineers adjust when site conditions change. Leaders, here's where you come in. You pivot when circumstances shift, but you keep integrity intact. And finally, communication. Engineers translate complex designs into clear instructions. Leaders, you communicate the promises that match your action. Dr. Marcia spoke about it earlier, where trust will erode when actions don't match up to the promises that you make. And so this is where we talk about mindset is currency. Leaders, you must believe vulnerability is strength and not weakness. Vision is currency. Leaders, ensure that the blueprint is not just inspiring, but it's buildable. Because we can have this nice vision on the wall, but is it buildable? And performance is currency. Trust enables performance to scale without micromanagement. So as we wrap up, Dr. Marcia, I want to give you a few seconds to share your final thoughts with our audience this morning. And then I go into, wrapping up the segment for today. I absolutely love the discussion this morning.
Here, same here. I want us to, my final thought would be that as leaders, I say it every time, and sometimes I don't think it's taken as important as it should be, but I say it and I want them to remember, and I want to end with it. Be thou true to yourself. You cannot then be false to any man. Be true to yourself. As a leader, knows what triggers you and how you trigger others. That's really the key and the kingpin. Don't be easily bought or sold. Make sure that in your innermost soul, you're true and honest, and that you stand for duty as a needle to the pole. What is your duty? Serving others, people over profits. That's really it. When you make people the important resource, then your profit becomes the overarching result. You must get profit because it's really the people who do the work. And
Yes.
it's time we pay attention to people and not profits. Because when you pay attention to people, profits are guaranteed.
That is so true, Dr. Marcia, and we could just end right there. People over profits, and that is absolutely true, because when you invest in your people, because people are your most important resources. The human capital in because the machinery can't operate without the human capital. Even with AI here, and they're building robots and all of that. Until then, the machines can't operate without the people, and people need interaction with people. they build, they create, and they do. Once you take care of the people, the profits will take care of themselves. And so here's where we are in the belief engine journey. The architect designs belief with a crystal clear vision. The engineer builds the belief by laying trust as the foundation. And so next week, we'll meet the mechanic, the leader who keeps belief alive by maintaining and repairing culture when things break down. And so your role as the engineer isn't to have all the answers, we said it. It's to build a foundation where answers can be discovered together. And so what's the reflection that I want you to have for this week? Where do you need to reinforce trust as leaders? Where do you need to reinforce trust? And what's one consistent deposit you can make into your leadership bank of belief this week? And remember, leadership, in leadership, trust is the currency that multiplies everything else. Without it, the vision will never stand. Again, thank you for joining us on another episode of Finding Freedom Through Confidence, where we always say that confidence isn't something that you pick up from a supermarket shelf, it's an ever growing muscle. See you all next week.
Bye, everyone, and get your copy of my book, My Faith Look Up, on Amazon.